Business Insider reports that AOC, Alexandria, right? Ocasio-Cortez, says she might quit politics as some centrist Democrats, it's an oxymoronic term, centrist Democrats blame progressives for House losses. Again, being reported by the Business Insider for those that are just listening and aren't actually watching this. All right. It says, and I quote, the Bronx native said that the Democratic Party has been hostile to progressives, or progressive causes rather, like Medicare for All and the movement for Black Lives. Interesting. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez told the New York Times in an interview that she might quit politics depending on the hostility of her own party towards progressive causes. I don't even know if I want to be in politics. You know, for real, in the first 6 months of my term, I didn't even know if I was going to run for re-election this year. Externally, there's been a ton of support, but internally, it's been extremely hostile to anything that even smells progressive. So she doesn't flat out say, and here it is right here. She says, "I chose to run for re-election because I felt like I had to prove that this is real, that this movement was real, that I wasn't a fluke. The people really wanted guaranteed health care, and that people want the Democratic Party to fight for them." So obviously she ends up running for re-election. But the main thing to take from this is not that she's going to quit. I don't see that happening, actually. I think the main thing is that there's obviously conflict between her and the mainstream, let's say, party or portion of the party, or the more, the guys that have been around, the establishment wing of that party. And there's some clashing going on, and that's not a new thing. I think it's coming into fruition a lot more because, yes, when you consider they didn't perform as well as they would have liked, and particularly the House, and we'll see what's going on with the Senate. But basically what happened is they're not performing to what they think. And a lot of them are pointing to the fact that they're pointing to the idea that some of the politics of the progressives that are making noises like the AOCs of the world. I always said that you should have been paying attention to her. A lot of Republicans and conservatives wrote her off. I told y'all fools that was an absolute mistake because she is going to be the future of that party in one way, shape, or form. That doesn't mean it's not going to be without conflict. But what they attribute, and they may be right, let's be fair here, they may actually be right. They may absolutely be right. Because there are folks, definitely older Democrats, right? And I'm not talking about older in terms of like Nancy Pelosi age. I'm talking like older folk that aren't like these sort of 18, 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds that the AOCs of the world generally appeal to. They're not necessarily with a lot of those more progressive ideals. They're not. And unfortunately, a lot of people have or would like to pretend as if they are, but they're not. A lot of you guys have mothers and fathers that are Democrats, and you talk to them and you probably have sit down conversations with them. And, you know, a lot of that stuff they're not with. Even when it comes to the Black Lives, I know a lot of them certainly don't like the idea that the Black Lives Matter, and a lot of that is coming with people having their businesses and stuff burned down. A lot of folks don't want to be associated with that. And they're like, oh, well, I thought this was just about caring about black people or justice. And it doesn't seem to really be that case, as, you know, it happens one time, it happens again, but then it's more widespread and it's constantly happening. People are doing it in the name of these supposed progressive causes. A lot of folks don't like that. And that in itself comes with a power conflict within the party, which I think is going to be very prominent over the next decade, but it also comes with the supporters. So I don't think it's without merit. I don't think they're just flailing and they're just looking for someone to blame when they look at, well, the progressive wing of our party is costing us voters, particularly blue collar workers and what have you, that just want to be they're just regular people, and they just want to be regular people. They won't want to be associated with all of this nonsense, and that's a real thing. And that conflict is going to be interesting as that develops over the course of the next decade or so, because who will prevail is more so the question. Obviously, AOC and the AOCs of the world did push the party to become more progressive, more leftist. But that doesn't mean it's going to be without conflict. And there may be, politics is not like a stagnant thing. I think or static rather. A lot of folks unfortunately look at it that way. And yes, there may be people, and there are people, I believe, that conservatives and libertarians are losing the more cultural side of the war. The AOCs of the world are winning. Absolutely, they're winning. Conservatives continue, libertarians continue to neglect certain subcultures. All she does is exist on Twitch, and she gets all this attention. These are opportunities that conservatives, I've been grilling them for the last week, they continue to screw up on. Right? They continue to screw up on. They continue to mess up. Right? And it is what it is. And with that being said, you have to consider that. Look, let me backpedal just a little bit on this. You saw that Donald Trump ended up actually losing support when it came to white voters. When it came to white voters, he lost support, more particularly white men. He gained support in other avenues. That is something that Democrats have to pay attention to, and they're not stupid and not completely oblivious to. So we'll see what happens going into the future, but I really don't know how this is going to be able to last for as long as it has, because there's going to be a great power conflict between the Democratic Party or within the Democratic Party, and that's going to bleed into the supporters. And you're going to see a big clash, particularly if Joe Biden remains president. So we will absolutely see what happens. We'll see what happens.